Hey everybody, Jeff Siegel here from Green Chip Stocks, here to answer your questions. Question number one, why do you think EV sales are declining? EV sales declined for the first time in about 12 years, so I'm not particularly concerned about it. Bloomberg data still shows that by 2030, 50% of all new car sales will be electric. There's any number of reasons. We lost the $7,500 tax credit for a lot of these vehicles. There's a lot of new EVs coming on the market the next year or two, so people are waiting. They want to see what else is available, maybe get a better deal. And then of course you have just loss of purchasing power. Things are more expensive for people. I think people are looking at bigger purchases a bit more carefully now and probably waiting a little bit till they feel more secure with their purchasing power. But in terms of this recent decline in sales, I wouldn't be concerned about that at all. The future of transportation is absolutely electric, and there will be a few bumps along the way, but this will look like an accounting error when all is said and done. What are your thoughts on the RoboTaxi rollout in places like San Francisco and Austin? This is the future. I mean, whether you like it or not, I know some people are upset about this because they look at this as a situation where people are going to lose jobs. But this is progress. We are going to have a situation where there will no longer be actual people driving these vehicles for taxis, Ubers, Lyfts. The cars of the future that are going to take us places will be electric and they'll be fully autonomous. They're cheaper to operate, they're safer. Again, I mean, if we look at history, we can look back to when we first had the internal combustion vehicle come on the road and people would say, oh, this is just a fad, this is never gonna last. And of course, that didn't work out. I think the same thing's gonna happen with autonomous vehicles, particularly when you talk about taxis and Ubers and Lyfts. The bottom line is, from an economic standpoint, it just makes more sense, and from a safety standpoint, it makes more sense. Where do you stand on the feasibility of electric airplanes and their market potential? Electric airplanes, you're going to see start off with short-haul flights. The battery capacity that you need for an airplane is far different from that which you would need for a bus or a truck or a car. So technologically speaking, we are not in a place yet where you're going to see long-distance flights using batteries. And quite frankly, who even knows if the future of airplanes will be electric? They may be hydrogen. It's hard to tell. We will be ultimately moving away from jet fuel, aviation fuel. So there's going to be kind of this transitionary period where you're going to move from regular conventional aviation fuel to what's called sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. And SAFs are kind of, I would say, the near future for airplanes and how to fuel our airplanes. Pretty much every major airline is now using some sustainable aviation fuels for their flights. The EU just recently mandated that a certain percentage of all flights in Europe and European airlines must use sustainable aviation fuels. So from an investment perspective, this is actually a really great opportunity because there aren't a lot of companies that are producing sustainable aviation fuels at scale. There's a company called Nesta, which is the leader in sustainable aviation fuels, and they have a clear first mover advantage. And they have deals with JetBlue and United and Boeing and Amazon. They have deals with airports all across the globe. So if you are looking for a way to benefit and profit from this transition from conventional aviation fuel to sustainable aviation fuel, Nesta would be a great way to do that. Has there been any major advancements in energy storage that could shake up the markets? So battery chemistries, we think about storage, a lot of times we think about batteries, and battery chemistries are constantly changing. The battery chemistries we saw just 10 years ago that were supposed to be used for electric cars of the future are somewhat outdated now. But in terms of storage for utility scale power generation, there will be batteries. We see batteries that are out there now. Tesla and Saft and a couple other companies actually have operational storage facilities right now. But the problem with those is they're still quite expensive. There's actually something called a Newton battery, or Newton battery, I guess you would call it. It's quite interesting because the technology behind it is quite basic and doesn't rely on expensive battery chemistries or lithium or large amounts of cobalt like we see now. So it's interesting that it's a very simple design and it's being used right now in Europe, and they're building another one of these Newton batteries in Saudi Arabia. I actually think that's probably going to be the future of energy storage. And I would encourage you to read more about the Newton battery, because I think over the next couple of years, any companies that are building these Newton batteries or utilizing the Newton batteries are going to have a significant advantage over any competition from stationary battery companies. Do you feel the near total adoption of EVs in places like Norway are fads or a trend worth paying attention to? We have to be careful when we compare what's happening in Norway to the rest of the world. Norway probably has the most generous subsidies available for electric vehicle adoption. I think they probably started in the late 90s, as far as I know. And it's at the point now that it doesn't even make sense from an economic standpoint to buy an internal combustion vehicle in Norway. It's an interesting case study in the adoption of electric vehicles, but I think we have to understand that, again, these are heavily subsidized situations that aren't going to happen anywhere else, particularly in the US. The one thing I would point out, though, which is really interesting about the Norway case study, is that a lot of detractors of electric vehicles will tell you that they don't work in a cold weather. It's very cold in Norway, and they work just fine. The idea that EVs don't work in cold weather is not accurate. You're going to lose range when it's extremely cold out in your vehicle, but the idea that they don't work has been proven wrong time and time again, and Norway is the perfect example. So thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below.